Rants, and boo, it's Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
And we're out here. I got my coonskin cap on.
We're going to do a spooky review of the Central Florida game today. And as you know,
Go ahead.
I predicted that we were going to win 41-28.
I had
those of you that watched our previous know
I had 41-21. I didn't expect that last touchdown.
Well, that was a kind of a
you got the backdoor thing. You got it.
So we were smarter than the odds makers, and you guys.
You need to go back and try to find
You're fortunate to have kept track of all of this stuff.
West Virginia 5-3 after this win in Central Florida. That's 3 wins in the Big 12. You know, a lot of people before this season. In fact, one of the betting lines was West Virginia winning 4.5 games. You could get the line betting over or under 4.5 wins. Well, you were already cashing your ticket.
You already
and
cashed
and you're only 2/3 of the way through the season. So you think about that, some of you people out there.
Central Florida was one of the 4 new teams that were supposed to beat us. We were supposed to finish 14th in the conference.
Yep.
Garrett Green was the worst quarterback in the Big 12.
The roster looked like a MAC conference team, is what someone said.
Coaches that were quizzed anonymously said we weren't strong, and we didn't have the lines to be able to play with the big boys.
Right.
And yet we just finished beating the odds makers yet again.
You know, they were 7-point favorites going into that game, and they were at home. I understand the home team gets to be a favorite, but 7 points.
Those 7-point favorites are the same nerds that were wrong about us in preseason. It goes to show you should list them out here, Rants. We'll tell you what's going to happen. Don't listen to these other nitwits. Let me talk a little bit about Central Florida, in case you didn't know. Central Florida was going into that game 3-4. They had beaten almost nobody. They beat Kent State 56-6. Kent State was 1-7 in the Mid-America Conference. Nothing.
Not much.
They beat Boise State 18-16. Boise State was 3-4 in the Mountain West Conference.
They've got a reputation because they were good a few years ago, so people think they're good. But
they beat Villanova 48-14. Now Villanova had a winning record. They were 5-2 in the Coastal Conference.
They shoot a lot of 3-pointers.
I think that's what it is. But once again, this is one of my grouses. We don't get cupcakes like that.
Right.
We didn't have 3 cupcakes to fatten up our scores, to get our players playing time, to smooth out mistakes. Our cupcakes were Pitt and Penn State.
Good point. We did have Duquesne in there. We had lightning and delays and all that for that. But anyway, go ahead.
That's right. Then they proceeded to lose. They lost to Kansas State 31-44. Kansas State is 5-2. They lost to Baylor 36-35.
And they lost that game. They were ahead by like 25 points, 26 points, and Baylor came back and beat them. That was horrific.
And but again, if you're going to give teams credit for close losses, they get credit for that. They lost to Kansas 51-22. Kansas is 5-2. It's a good team.
It's pretty good.
And they lost to Oklahoma 31-29. That was a 7-0 Oklahoma team at the time by a couple of points. So again, if you give somebody credit for close losses, they should get some credit for that.
In their defense, their big-time quarterback, John Rice Plumlee. I don't know why we got to say Rice. Why don't we call him John Plumlee? I don't understand. But for some reason, every time they talk about it. But he was out. He was injured. He was hurt. He came back and was almost 100% against Oklahoma. They played that game. They got down to just 2 points and had a chance to tie it and didn't get it. And all of a sudden, everybody thinks it's a good team with their quarterback back.
And they are better with Plumlee.
No doubt.
And I will say, West Virginia never trailed in this game.
Right.
We scored first. We put up 10, 7, 7, and 17 in this game, whereas they got 7 each quarter. But I got to give credit where credit's due. Plumlee's ball was caught the first 14 times he threw it. A couple of them were interceptions, but they didn't hit the ground. He was that efficient. He was getting it where it needed to be. And our defense was having a rough time stopping them. If it hadn't been for the turnovers, they only punted once. So they were moving the ball both on the air and in the ground. And while I'm being nice, I thought they did a pretty darn good job against our lines, both our offensive line and our defensive line. I thought we would dominate them, And we won, we handled them, we were fine, but we didn't
I'm
dominate.
gonna disagree with you there, cause we ran for almost 300 yards. So if that's domination in college football.
That's true.
And our defensive line, maybe not, their offensive line, that was more of a standoff, but our offensive line, but I think dominated them. Garrett Green was never pressured and we could run the ball
We
at will.
clearly didn't stuff them at the line of scrimmage.
No,
They
we did
could
not.
run the ball.
They could.
And we weren't opening big holes for our running backs. We were going wide when we were getting, although a couple of them we went inside and out.
First drive of the game, we went for it on a 4th down in our own territory, and it was like, let's go, let's do it, and we got it, and he got 20 yards with CJ.
Let's sing some praises of our team.
Yes.
Garrett Green had 3 rushing touchdowns. He had 11 rushes for 55 yards. His longest was 21 yards. And one of the things that the coaches point out is he didn't take sacks, which would hurt our total rushing, and that's what happened when we've had previous quarterbacks that don't have
No
fleet
quarterback from West Virginia has run for 3 touchdowns in a game since Pat White. Now, Garrett Green's not Pat White, but Garrett Green's a pretty damn quick quarterback.
Yep. He passed 14 out of 23. He completed for 156 yards and no touchdowns, but no interceptions.
Right.
And I frankly thought he looked more poised when he was doing his runouts. And while the coach jumped him about you should have handed off this time or not that time, I still think he looked better on his feet. He didn't look as upset.
He took that shot right there late in the game when he didn't need to. He was rolling out and trying to make a play. The dude nailed him in the ribs. Now, you can't have that with your quarterback. Get rid of the ball. We can't. He doesn't understand his valuable. But then again, the other side of that, the reason he's like that is because he wants to play. He's a competitor. He's a ball player.
Energy.
Yep.
CJ had 17 rushes. CJ Donaldson, he had 17 rushes for 121 yards. His longest was 32 yards. Jakeem White had 9 rushes for 85 yards and a touchdown. His longest was 32 yards. So both of them had a touchdown rushing.
Did anybody notice that Justin Johnson started the game at tailback? CJ did not, and I think we had a little motivating thing happen right there. And then Jakeem White got in and did a couple of good things, and all of a sudden now CJ, it's time. Yeah, I gotta stand up here. Or I don't have a job. That's what I think happened.
I like how they use CJ at the end of the game.
Yep.
He's fresh. They're tired. 240-pound back is a lot harder to tackle when you're tired, especially when your heart's gone. And I thought that was a nice use of him. But then the story also is the defense. Marcus Floyd had an interception. Galen Thornton had a recovered fumble after Jalen after Koba had a nice sack, and while again I was secondary, he couldn't find an open man, and Koba got him.
Give Vesterinian, I can't say his name, a little assist to Marcus Floyd's interception because he was in on Plumlee and made him throw it up.
And then of course I think one of the players of the game clearly is Beanie Bishop.
Absolutely.
Beanie Bishop had 2 interceptions. We give you some pictures of some amazing interceptions on that. He also had a breakup. That brings him up to 4 interceptions for the season, 11 breakups for the season, which means he ranks 6th nationally in interceptions and number 1 nationally for breakups at 11. He was named the co-defensive player of the week in the Big 12, and he's just a little guy.
He is, but he's a ball player.
He's a ball player.
I would be remiss if I didn't interject our special teams in here. Whereas they didn't do anything special, they didn't recover an onside kick, they didn't run a punt back for a touchdown. Michael Hayes was, he was solid, but he was incredible, really. Because, first of all, we didn't have our holder. Grayson Malashevitz was not there, so
the announcers, the nitwit announcers,
they didn't even know
that.
Yeah. And so we had another. So that's right away. That's something that could potentially be a problem. It wasn't. He made every kick, every field goal.
He made a 41-yard field goal. He made a 24-yard field goal. But
every kickoff went out of the end zone to the left, not to the point where they could return it. They had 1 fair catch, and they returned, I think, 1, and they didn't even get out to the 25. Michael Hayes was solid. Now, we thought when Casey Legg left that we might have a problem this year because he just up and quit. He had more eligibility. Michael Hayes has been fantastic. Thank you, Michael. We love you.
Some other kudos. Mr. Brown's boys controlled the ball. They controlled the clock for 36 minutes in this game, and we're nationally ranked as a team for controlling the ball. I know that's not exciting for some people that want to have
like that,
a lot of horse race games, but we control the ball. They can't score. We keep their offense off the field.
You got less opportunities to score, you won't score as much.
And in this game, we controlled it 36 minutes, including 10 minutes and 4 seconds in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So we scored 17 points in the fourth quarter. They got one crappy touchdown while we were in a prevent,
right at the end,
because we were pretty much saying, throw it underneath, we don't care.
It was, yeah.
We also got to give them kudos. West Virginia was 7 of 7 in the red zone. They now have 11 games where they've rushed for at least 140 yards. That's the longest in the nation.
Yep.
Their last 3 games, they've scored 41, 34, and 41 points, averaging 39 points a game in the last 3 games. Here's the irony. We were 1 and 2 in those last 3 games. Yeah. But in the first 3 games, not counting Duquesne, where we racked up 56 points over our cupcake, in the first game, 4 games, we were 3 and 1, averaging 19 points. Yeah. So we've got the offense on gear. If we can get the defense back in gear to holding them down, everything may come together now.
This was a game I was gonna say, I tried to put it in perspective, and this was a game that I thought we should have gone down there and took care of business. Even though we weren't favored, because they came off of a really good performance the week before. We, not so much. We looked bad against Oklahoma State, particularly in the fourth quarter. But we went down there and just business-like took care of this game. And if you want to complain about Brown and he doesn't do his job and his team's underachieve and all that, this is not one of those. This team didn't underachieve. This team went down and took care of business. Went and got the ball. Somebody kept talking about that early in the season. You got to get the ball. Well, we got it 4 times. No wonder we won the game.
UCF had not lost at home since 2016. This year, Baylor beat them 2 weeks ago, and now West Virginia, they have a 2-game losing streak at all.
And they had never lost a homecoming game before, and that was a homecoming for them. So thanks for having us. As the 3 guys would say, thanks for having us.
Yeah. There's one other storyline before I rant. I got a little bit of rant. There's one other storyline. There was a Morgantown native by the name of Marcellus Marshall, who, when he graduated from Morgantown High, he got no offer from West Virginia, went and played at Kent State. Then he got in the transfer portal. West Virginia didn't offer. He went to Central Florida, and they thought they were going to play him on the offensive line. I didn't see him playing, but that's one of your storylines.
Couple of things.
Go ahead.
Doug Nestor getting hurt. Well, let's see what happens. I don't think he's going to play next week, is what they said. That hurts. Of course, we've got a lot of people banged up and beat up on defense, but Nestor's one of our best linemen. So
I think Andrew Wilson Lamp is coming back.
That's what I'm hoping.
I still don't understand what's going on with Dixon, but I don't think Dixon's ever
going to play.
I think that's a violation.
And something with Hudson Clement. They didn't play at all. Traylon Ray, it wasn't there. So hopefully we get some of these guys back as the season goes on. So understand. You saw Gerald Wilson in the game at wide receiver a couple times, number 10. He doesn't ever get to play, but he played in this game.
We saw Bizer and linebacker. We saw a number of freshmen.
Raleigh Collins was in the game.
Real freshmen playing, and we're patching it together. Yeah. It's the depth that they have and the strength they've had from the strength that let us get away with it. But let me just grumble a little bit about defense.
Sure.
They only had to punt once. Yeah. Because we really weren't stopping them. They were stopping themselves through interceptions or fumbles, and they only punted once. That worries me. They passed for 3 touchdowns. They rushed for another one. I thought their lines were comparable to us, and if they didn't have 4 turnovers, I think we've got a problem. So we need to be better than that defensively in the upcoming games.
The other side of that would be we got the 4 turnovers and they had another one on down. So there's 5 times they did not. Now, did they give us the ball or did we take it from them? That's what you say. But
if we can't stop them, we better score every time. And I was
Or
concerned.
get the ball.
The second time we had the ball, we ended up with 3, and I thought we should have had 7.
I agree.
I thought we were pretty good on penalties. We didn't make any major mistakes.
We didn't.
We took care of the ball. Those are the things that made the difference. That's the discipline that we saw in some of the first games.
We did have one where Preston Fox fumbled the ball on a little wide receiver screen, got hit pretty hard and fumbled the ball, but Tomas Rimac was right there to jump on it. So, I mean, awareness. We played a good game. It's just that simple. We played a good game, and they gave it to us. We didn't go and take that game from them.
You can't ask a whole lot more of a team. They played a pretty solid game, top to bottom. I mean, they can play better.
Yes,
but
they can.
But I like defense. I like sacks. I like interceptions. I like knocking people down.
I like hits.
And I want to see more of that. Do that. To get that defense back to the way it was 2 or 3 years ago, and with this offense, we're going to do the impossible dream. We're going to play for the Big 12 championship. You heard it here first.
Maybe next year. I don't know. There's a lot of games here this week could happen. So let's see what happens. I love the game. Central Florida, it's a great win. Please like, please subscribe, and we'll see you next time when we preview the Brigham Young game.
It really was the happiest place when we beat their asses.
MICKEYMOULOST